All right. Yeah, the stream should be on right now, and that's about it. So, yeah. All right. Instead of display capture, I'll do something else. How about this? Can I preview this? So this is how it looks like. Can I add some filters to it? Maybe like crop. Yeah. Oh shit. No. Crop. Yeah, that one. Okay. So top. I should do 100 then. Or maybe not 100, but like 50 or so. Maybe I don't know. Fucking know. Well, let's do 80. Or fuck. All right, 150. Oh, that works. I guess, yeah. I can. Oh shit. No. Fuck. What's going on? Oh, right. Hold on. Okay, I added that. And this is window capture 3. I'm gonna add it over here. I'm gonna make it shorter, smaller, whatever the fuck. And I'm just gonna play the fucking game. Okay. So reacting to
stated the Southeast, but what has compounded that situation in the world of politics is all the disinformation, misinformation, which is pervading, mostly from Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans and the entire media apparatus. So the lies that have been pervading are things like, FEMA's not on the ground, or FEMA is on the ground, but they're only offering you $750, not just a preliminary aid, but of total aid. They're not going to help you with anything else. As a matter of fact, they could help you with more, but unfortunately, President Biden and Vice President Harris, they raided the coffers. They robbed Peter to pay Paul. They took the natural disaster relief fund and actually sent it towards undocumented migrants at the southern border. Donald Trump and MAGA Republican politicians have been signal boosting these lies incessantly on X, other aspects of social media, on camera, at the same time that Republican state and local leaders are saying this is all nonsense.
I don't know if you saw this, but wow, guys, we have 2 more events that are coming up before the election. Progressive Victory is organizing an event that I will be at for at least one day in Las Vegas. That's happening on October 26th and October 27th. And then if you can't make that one and you'd prefer to go canvass over in Pennsylvania, there is an event on the 2nd and 3rd. The Democratic National Convention, the DNC, somebody for the Democrats is organizing that one. I won't be at that one, but other DGGers might sign up. If you're interested, check out the link in the description below or go to progress.win to sign up for either of those events.
The 2 lies that you just spoke about were like the better lies, because there are 2 even more insidious lies that I saw going around that were getting pretty popular. And then one was referenced in a call that I'll ask if you think was real or not. The first lie, the really bad one, but not the worst one, was that the money that FEMA gives you is a loan. And so if you ended up taking money from FEMA, they're going to come back and they're going to make you pay it back, or they're going to take your house, was one. And then a second one I saw that was accompanied by just random videos, like 20-second shots of helicopters. The second one I saw was FEMA is actually showing up, but the only reason why they're showing up is to stop other people from saving civilians. That the helicopters and FEMA and everybody are showing up to destroy the humanitarian supplies that have been collected by other people, and to just hamper the rescue efforts for God knows what is even the reason they would think that would be the case. But yeah. And then
so I have heard those. Well, also while you're saying that, like I'm thinking some of the other ones, like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that Hurricanes Helene and Milton were actually a product of a secret government weather controlling apparatus. Well, she said they, so she could have also been referring to the Jews, given her history of anti-Semitic remarks. So we have no idea. Either liberals, the Jews, liberal Jews, we don't know for sure. Also, that FEMA is actually, when they do rescue, they're trying to seize land for lithium in order
For
to
the
mine
lithium
it
deposits.
for batteries. Yeah, yeah. So it's just like one thing after another. But yeah, it's really dangerous and scary stuff, and it's actually so bad that FEMA had to put up a basically rumor debunking section of their website for like the first time, where they're like, these lies are so pervasive and they're all over the place that we actually have to go line by line and fact check them. And of course, Elon Musk has played a role in this as well, making it worse. But this is huge, man. It's insane. We've not seen this sort of dis and misinformation about natural
Active measures, demoralization, destabilization. Okay, sure.
disasters in recorded American history. This is like exponentially increased. I wonder what you think about that.
I worry. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I don't know if my doomerism came off in the last in the canvassing event that we just did, but I don't know if we've already crossed a threshold. But the unification of Elon Musk, Donald Trump, corrupt member, not corrupt, intellectually corrupted members in the House, and I guess like the social media landscape in general are all working together in a way that I have never seen before to pump out misinformation. It's incredibly scary, incredibly damaging. I'm curious for your opinion. I saw on my subreddit that there was a call posted where a guy had called into a radio program who sounded like he was tearing up because his father or father-in-law was basically refusing supplies from FEMA, saying that he didn't trust them, he didn't want to pay back a loan, he was waiting for somebody else to show up. Do you have any idea if that call was real? Or I don't know if any more information came out about that, or I don't know if you even heard it, or what I'm referring to.
My father-in-law lives just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and he was badly damaged by Hurricane
This one
Helene.
is just so sad.
And he has refused all FEMA help because he's a hardcore Trumper. And he literally believes that if he accepts anything from FEMA, they're going to take his house. I don't understand how so many people are under the spell of this freaking con man. I don't understand it.
Well, it's absolutely heartbreaking about your father-in-law. I'm so sorry to hear it. I hope.
And it's hard to even imagine it. I mean, he lost almost everything, and he's refusing all help from the federal government and complaining to us that he doesn't have food, that he doesn't have the stuff he needs, and yet he won't accept the help. What the hell are we supposed to do? We're not in a position to be able to fly across the country and help him. Yeah. There's people begging us to get him to accept help, and he won't do it.
Wow.
And I guarantee you, I'm not the only one. I guarantee you, I'm not the only one.
I wish there was something I could say as to, I don't know. Does he have access to any electronics where you could send him some information debunking this, and that he might?
We've done all of that. We've done all of that. We've sent him all the FEMA bulletins. We've sent him all the stuff from the fact checkers. He doesn't believe it. He thinks it's all. He just believes Trump.
Dissonance.
Literally, Dan.
Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. Demoralization. Destabilization. Yuri was right. For the wrong reasons, but he was right.
It's a cult. He's a cult member. I'm sorry to say it. He's a cult member. And he's my father-in-law, and it sucks.
No, I did hear the call. It went viral. It was even retweeted by Vice President Harris's official, campaign Twitter. So not to say that it's guaranteed that call is legit, but it seems to me that if the vice president's own official Twitter page was going to regurgitate it, that it has some factual basis. But let's just assume that specific call is fake. Let's just grant the cynical premise that it's not true. Is it really outside the realm of possibility that there are people in these situations that, Stephen, when we linked up for the canvassing event, we discussed your mother, and I've said that, my late mother was a big fan of Donald Trump. She died before the 2020 election, but we have family members and friends who I could easily see in the situation described in that phone call, where they're just sitting in the ruins of their home, in the ground zero of a natural disaster, because they fear that the Biden-Harris administration will either not help them or will thwart them. I could easily see that happening.
You probably can't make it out from here, but my mom sends me all of these messages. It absolutely does not surprise me. She sent me one for the. Wouldn't it be crazy if one of the richest lithium deposits in the world was right outside of Asheville, North Carolina? Wouldn't it be crazy if the largest lithium mining company in the world, 3 days before the flood began, submitted the permits for their mine rights? Or she sends me all of this stuff. This doesn't surprise me at all. Like, if it is fake, it could absolutely be real.
It's just so sad, man. Russians have mind fucked Americans in real time, and none of them gave a shit.
But I mean, obviously, yeah.
It's just so fucking sad.
I'm always super paranoid that somebody's trying to.
And the other thing I think is worth noting here. Well, no, I was just going to say, and there could be some lag here, which might be if we're stumbling over each other. But what I was going to say was the other thing that's so important about this is it would be bad enough, Stephen, if these were just legions of MAGA voters peddling this disinformation or this misinformation. It would be bad and dangerous enough. But what makes this even more insidious is you have elected members of Congress. You have Republican politicians who, quite frankly, should be held to a higher standard than the voters. I mean, we used to believe in the Uncle Ben Spider-Man notion that with great power comes great responsibility. And so you should hold your elected officials to a higher standard. This is being signal boosted by Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the reason, and not just Marjorie Taylor Greene, but also, again, other MAGA Republicans, it's so important to note because as the election rapidly approaches, what we hear all the time is, this both sides, right? Both sides engage in dis and misinformation. This is a further nail in the coffin that there is no counterpart. There is no Democrat like Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's no Democratic counterpart to MTG. There's no Democratic counterpart to Donald Trump. Yes, precisely. And the list goes on and on and on.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but
bullshit that people peddle.
The House Republicans are insane. I have to tell people that, oh, did you see this thing that came out of the House? If it comes from the House Republicans, you cannot trust it. It is meaningless. You can read the material and try to fact check it, but you can never take anything that comes at face value from the House Republicans. The stuff they publish in there is insane. It's actually insane. Sorry, we could go on, but yeah, Jesus, holy Christ, yeah.
Well, and what's also funny too is I'll give you we should not hang our hats on this. This is nothing. It's sad that this is even noteworthy, but it is in the political context. So there is a Florida freshman congresswoman who she represents one of Florida's districts in the United States House of Representatives. Her name is Anna Paulina Luna, and she's one of the more infamous incoming freshman Republicans. She actually hosted a town hall with Donald Trump into Hurricane Helene, as Hurricane Helene was going on. And she signal boosted his lies. She said things like, Mr. President, this is just my opinion, but I totally agree with you that FEMA's not doing what they can to help the American people. And you need to do more, FEMA. And then she was one of the Republicans who voted against, just weeks earlier, additional FEMA funding, number one. She voted against it, struck it down. Number two, days after she signal boosted all these lies, she gets a phone call from President Biden.
There are some that are very rare ones who are actually good people, like Mitt Romney, and it used to be that John McCain was one of them. May he rest in peace. But it's just over for them at this point. They're like ghouls. They're like evil, literally. This is fucking insanity.
Apparently, they have a really good phone call such that Anna Paulina Luna goes on Twitter and says, hey, I just got off the phone with President Biden. He was really helpful. He said that the federal government's going to foot the bill for debris removal and all these things. And actually, Speaker Mike Johnson, you need to reconvene Congress in order to pass additional FEMA funding. So, again, it's staggering that a Republican congresswoman is actually, for a brief moment, doing her goddamn job, and actually acknowledging that the Biden-Harris administration is doing its job. And she's publicly calling the Republican speaker to reconvene so they can have additional funding that she voted against just weeks ago. And so to me, it's just the whole thing is so staggering. And then the last thing I'll say is in response to that, Mike Johnson has reaffirmed that he will not reconvene Congress, and they're just going to have to deal with it when they go back into session. And this abdication of duty is something that I wish more Americans cared about. The election should not be this close.
Yeah.
It absolutely should not be this close. Also, when you know, not to hang our hat on it, like you said, I won't hang my hat on it. Okay. The question that I have then is, when something like that happens, and somebody wants to give credit to somebody for figuring something out, right? Like, imagine you have a friend who's been driving their car for 2 years, and then you take a ride with them to work, and you pull out of the garage, and the car is like, and you're like, hey, and they were driving man, you're like, you can switch out of first gear, you know that, right? And they've had the car for 2 years, and they go, oh, that makes it so much simpler. Like, am I willing to give the person credit for something that they probably should have known in the beginning? Like, when you talk about this call between Biden and the Republican lawmaker, did she just not know? Did she just have no fucking idea how FEMA or the president or any with the response? Does she not know how it even works? And then when Biden called her, she's like, oh, whoa, that's actually really cool. Mike, we need to come back in and talk about this. This is crazy. We should actually vote for more. Like, what? Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Some speculate that all it took, these people, I think there's a narcissism, not just to Trump, obviously, there's a malignant narcissism, but I think there's a narcissism which underpins MAGA Republican, like prominent MAGA Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. I'm sure you would agree. I think this person, I think it was just the fact that she got a phone call from the most powerful man in the world made her feel like really warm and fuzzy. And he's basically just telling her exactly what hey, listen, we are doing everything we can. We are going to foot the bill on debris removal. What can we do to help your district? Shit that's basically been said already, but the fact is she's hearing it from Biden's mouth. And here's where I wanted to bring this up to you. So after all this, Stephen, she goes on your buddy Benny Johnson's podcast.
Oh, God.
Okay, your Piers Morgan frenemy. And even Benny Johnson is praising Joe Biden. This is what I don't understand.
Yeah.
The same people who are signal boosting the lies about Biden, not just about hurricane relief and everything else, are now isn't it great that leaders can come, Biden can work with Ron DeSantis, and that he can actually support a flamethrower like you. That's what he called her, a flamethrower on a Polina Luna. And so here's what I don't understand. How long will this last? How long will this public praise of Biden last? Because I don't know if I would give it till Monday.
Yeah, who knows? Sorry, also, guys, if it's a little bit laggy, it's because Josiah here is coming from deep within the chambers of the Capitol building, deep underground, so the Discord connection is not the best. But yeah, I'm also really big on the when I would fight with people online, I would notice that some people would do this, and so I use the same standard now for lawmakers, for people in media. You do not get to get credit 2 times every time. You can't do that. You can't get to virtue signal about how horrible and abhorrent a particular issue is and then collect all of the righteous fury and positive feedback from your audience for speaking truth to power and then immediately correct yourself afterwards when you realize, oh, what I just said was total fucking bullshit.
Ever since, there
I remember the question now. How you popping balls?
And then be like, guys, yeah, this is actually not true. Here's this. And then have your audience go, oh my God, so brave of you for like changing your mind and like following the facts. And this is why we follow you. Sure, you can do this like once or twice. But if this is like a pattern of behavior, it's literally, this is the hack that we all dreamed up in Catholic school in 5th grade when we're like, wow, there's the sacrament of confession. Like, what if we just go and murder like 500 people and then ask God for forgiveness? Like, we should be good and we can just do that over and over again, right? And it's like, well, no, proper contrition doesn't work that way. Much the same way that you shouldn't get credit for being correct or for coming around on something if you were like intentionally lying in the beginning with no due diligence whatsoever. Especially, this is their job. They're lawmakers. This is actually their job, right? You can argue maybe media misinformation or maybe maybe how they tweet or what they do on their social media accounts or their public statements maybe are one thing, but literally things like voting on FEMA and allocating funds to their district and representing their constituents in front of the body of Congress or to the president. This is actually what they are elected to do. So yeah, but sorry, yeah. We can go back and forth on this particular story. I hate that all of these are. This story alone is like a 4-year defining moment, but it'll just be another moment lost in time, like all the other insane moments have been. Yeah, sorry.
Well, no, I was going to say, so the reason we spent so much time on this is because, unfortunately, this is eaten up. I mean, obviously, again, there's the natural disaster component. Lives were lost. Infrastructure was wiped out. I mean, just a lot of damage to it. But politically, this ate up most of the past 2 weeks. Another story that I want to talk about, though, is actually really, really fresh. So Mark Milley, who was Donald Trump's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that is the senior military advisor to the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense, the highest-ranking officer in the United States military, he retired after continuing to serve under President Biden. He retired back in 2023. Well, we just received information from an upcoming book by Bob Woodward, who's a legendary journalist who broke the Watergate scandal. You know, if there was one person single-handedly responsible for killing President Nixon's political career, it was Bob Woodward. Well, in this upcoming book, General Milley is interviewed, and he tells Woodward that Donald Trump is the most dangerous man in the country. Was in severe cognitive decline and a fascist, okay? Now, again, you want to talk about a 40-year defining moment, which should be a game changer politically, but no one on the right gives a single solitary about. What do you think? I mean, again, because I know you at your at least your mom, I think both your parents, but I know your mom was a veteran. So how is it? What does it mean that the highest ranking conservative member of the United States military who knew this man, worked for him loyally, says he's the most dangerous man in the world, he's a fascist, he's unfit for office, he's in mental decline? What do you think about all this, man?
Did you see Milley calling Trump a fascist? Let's see if my mom responds in the next 5 minutes. I'm curious what she'll say. I know what she'll say. She'll say, oh, Milley's a rhino. That's what she'll say. That's what they say for all of them. You bring up the Woodward stuff in Nixon. Woodward also had the big book on Trump, but or the big expose. He wrote a book on it, I believe, right? I don't remember what it's called, but
He did. He wrote several. He wrote the most recent one. Is Peril, which is a really good book. It's part of a trilogy, transitioning from the last days of the Trump administration into the first days of the Biden administration. And this one, I believe, is called War.
Gotcha.
It's not released yet, but I think it'll be dropping on Monday.
I'll be honest, when you bring up Woodward and recent stuff, the thing that I am seeing the most, and God, I wish there was video camera footage of this, assuming it really happened, as he says it did, but it was some of the quotes that he had about, wait, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yeah, you cut out on me pretty bad.
I was going to say the Woodward quote that stands out to me the most were some of the ones that he had about Biden coming out. I'm imagining the WCK attacks or whatever, when they obviously messed up, there's something bad, and that quote of Biden, I'm just imagining him putting down the phone and being like, Bibi, what the f***? There were some, that what I just said was an exact quote, supposedly. Bibi, what the f***? Mm-hmm. There were some very funny quotes from Biden about Netanyahu there, assuming they're true or whatever. But yeah, I agree. I mean, huge. He's untouchable. I don't know if any single person could come out, because I'm thinking, like, who would be the most damning person against Trump? Nobody cares that Melania has kind of like disappeared. Nobody cares that his vice president, who had like the most conservative voting record, almost like anybody, in terms of disposition. I don't know who. You had people, your strongest Trump warriors, your McCarthys, are now considered rhinos. It doesn't matter. Trump is very much like untouchable. Maybe if a family member came out against him, but probably not.
Yeah.
I don't
He could literally probably just kill people and he would get away with it or something.
I don't even know that. I think that Trump, made a prophecy when he said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote. I do believe that we're seeing the culmination of that. I mean, it's a total abdication of the Republican Party's claims to be pro-military, pro-national defense, pro-patriotism.
More like pro-Trump at this point. Just nothing. No other ideology. No other thought. Just the Messiah. The orange.
You have a lifelong veteran, a man with a storied career, a combat veteran, who served under both administrations or both parties, and then he was appointed to his post. I should say, Donald Trump picked him, and Donald Trump only picks the very best people. But again, they don't care about that either. He points the very best people, and they'll stick with that. Except when he points the very best people who disagree with him. Well, that was an exception, but it's an exception which doesn't reflect on Trump, either morally or in terms of his ability to delegate and hire people. They just, like, it's water. They always find a way, the path of least resistance, in a way to avoid giving Trump any accountability. But the other thing to know is I still think this sort of thing would kill the career of any other politician, at least a Democrat. I think let me put it like this. I think if Mark Milley came out and said the same shit about President Biden, whom he also served, even in 2024, that would be the end. Like, that would be a scandal that would latch on to Harris. Everybody would be flipping out about it. But Trump is this exception. And it's incredibly dangerous, and it goes back to things that we talked about before, which is we cannot have a functioning society. Not just, we obviously have to have some sort of shared factual reality, but we also have to have some shared value set. And this is part of the reason why I don't know if I buy this idea anymore about, so-called American values. I don't even know what American values are anymore, given that 50% of the country seems to have abandoned the values that they used to claim were American. So again, a notion of truth and responsibility and civic engagement, and with power comes responsibility. I don't know what any of that means anymore. And that's why I think so much is riding on this election, because if Donald Trump is rewarded for all of this stuff, what will it mean for the next election, even if he leaves office in 2028? I think that we have gone past the point of no return if Trump wins this election.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's a symptom and a cause, and I mean, like, symptomatically, Trump is so popular for a reason, but he also furthers the cause at the same time. There's definitely an issue right now with our society that somebody like him could be so popular, but he also exacerbates it and makes it worse. Yeah, those are good talking points, though. I approve of them. Whoever you've been listening to, very good on that. We definitely have to have a shared value set. We definitely have to be in a world where we're all kind of like playing by the same rules, because otherwise things necessarily collapse, and descend into absurdity. So give me a final and anything else quick that's going on, anything we should keep our eyes open to on the horizon.
We want to keep an eye on how the stump speeches will impact the election, because Obama is still the most popular person in the Democratic Party, bar none. So I'm glad they're bringing out the big guns. I will say, with respect to the election, We are seeing an increasing number of right-leaning pollsters that tend to be more conservative in general, and it's being reflected in the poll results. So a lot of doomerism being spread. And listen, this is going to be a very close election unless it totally defies the odds. I wouldn't be surprised to see like a 270, 268, sort of split. And so we should brace ourselves accordingly. But I will also say the New York Times Siena poll for Arizona and Pennsylvania just dropped today, and Trump is leading in Arizona, but he's behind in Pennsylvania. Harris is leading. So just keep this in mind that this is within the margin of error. Nate Silver, 538, the Silver Bulletin, Cook Political Report, they still favor Harris, even now, over Trump, but we cannot get complacent, and that's why the Wisconsin canvassing events that you and Progressive Victory orchestrated, these things are extremely important. People need to keep the faith. They need to turn out and vote. But right now, even though the polls are tightening, Harris is still favored. So we still have a shot here.
Yeah, I'm just constantly reminded every time I see these like memes posted on X or posted on Reddit where it's like American population, candidate A or candidate B, which one is like Hitler? 82% candidate A. American population poll, which candidate cares about being a good person? Candidate A, 92%. Candidate B, 8%. Which politician seems like they would murder a homeless person? And it's like candidate A, 12%. Candidate B, like 88%. And then it's like, who would you vote for? And it's like 49-51 split. And I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, wait, what is happening? I don't know. All right, well, hey, listen, thanks for catching up. I look forward to you returning to the United States, and so we don't have to communicate via satellite international connection. I think Elon Musk is sabotaging our communication, but
100%.
Thank you very much.
He's terrified of it, man. He's terrified. He knows the superpower here. He knows what DGG is capable of. He's definitely going to mute Pisco, I think, in your next conversation.
Yeah, you think so? Okay. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Taking a couple weeks off. Pisco, welcome to our weekly update that has taken a couple weeks off. I've been out of town. We've been doing stuff, but catch us up. What's been going on?
Yeah, it's good to be back. First of all, welcome back. And yeah, we have two stories this week in the legal news. The first is our good friend Jack Smith, the special counsel into the investigations into Donald Trump. He released a filing recently, which is addressing some of these issues from the Supreme Court's immunity decision. Do you recall that, Stephen?
I do indeed recall that.
Yeah, we don't really agree with the immunity decision, Stephen and I. We think that it's a textual. We think it's not supported by the structure of the Constitution. And we basically think that out of whole cloth, the Supreme Court, in the decision by Chief Justice Roberts, manufactured or legislated from the bench to create this immunity doctrine that has no foundation in our history or the structure of the Constitution. That said, we're respecters of the law. And when the Supreme Court says what the law is, the lower courts and certainly federal prosecutors are bound to accept that law as precedent. And so Jack Smith, in order to comply with the Supreme Court's ruling, needed to make certain findings of fact and present them to the court to see if they're going to agree with the court. Now, what findings of fact they have to make relate to whether or not certain conduct that Donald Trump is being indicted for is quote-unquote official conduct or unofficial conduct. You can imagine the president's role is pretty broad in our system of government. At its maximal, you might even say the president has an official duty to speak in the bully pulpit to the general public. Obviously, the president has a lot of responsibilities in negotiating with even states, right? I mean, right now we were talking about President Biden's response and Kamala Harris's response to the hurricanes and the natural disasters. The president has a lot of role.
Real quick, just to expand on that a little bit. So for the immunity decision passed by the court, Roberts basically defined 3 different categories of actions that a president could theoretically take or could take, right? That an action will either be something that is basically like essential and exclusively in the purview of the president. It's a thing that only he can do. Congress, nobody else can even touch that action. And that when he's performing those actions, he should be beyond all form of criminal review. You can't even ask questions about it. You can't use it as evidence towards another crime. The second bucket, he said, were, he called them official acts, but they might not be things that only the president could do. So there's going to be some level of presumptive immunity. which is a new thing I believe that's been created by Roberts, meaning that if you want to prosecute a president for doing an act, so this might be something that he does, but Congress also can kind of like do this as well, or they might have like authorized it via statute or something like that, that you have to make an argument in front of the court before you even go to court. You have to make the argument that if we probe on this action, it's not going to do damage to the executive that would prevent them from carrying out their job. And then the third thing is unofficial acts. And now these three buckets have been kind of, I'm not going to do the both sides thing. I was going to say weaponized by people on both sides. It's not, because in the most extreme version on the left side, the worry is, well, what if the president in an official act starts assassinating political rivals? Now, people on the right assure us that, well, that can't happen because that's not an official act. Okay. I mean, Roberts didn't address that very issue that was brought up by Sotomayor in the dissent, and he had the opportunity to. They passed these drafts around, and he chose not to address that particular hypothetical, which was annoying. And so now we're on the second two things, which we're going to get into, the official acts and unofficial acts. But the scary thing is, like you said, well, what is an official act or versus an unofficial act? Going by the structure of how this ruling is, as much as I hate it, I can see a world where you do delineate, but the thing that's going to trigger me even more than that particular ruling is if the Supreme Court quibbles over these delineations. And I can already see ways in reading things that I'm going to get unimaginably triggered. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that I agree largely with your analysis there. I would say that the core executive authorities is a subset of official. So there's kind of two, it grounds out into three buckets, but they're kind of two categories, which is official, unofficial, and then core, and you could say non-core. And as you said, the core relates to something within the executive's preclusive and exclusive authority. And so, yeah, it grounds out into those three buckets largely, but things that are unofficial are not protected at all. And as you're saying, sometimes it can be hard to see what is official and what's not official, especially with respect to like actions that involve other government officials, but maybe not the purpose of what those government officials are around for. And so, yes, in this case, I could very much see some quibbling if this will get to the Supreme Court, and it almost certainly will get to the Supreme Court at some point. Yeah. However, what the Supreme Court asked Jack Smith to do is to have some kind of evidentiary-based, some fact-based findings in order to conclude initially whether or not something is in one of these buckets or another bucket. And you can imagine that makes sense, Stephen, because the whole point of the immunity doctrine is to have these kinds of incentives and to prevent these cases from coming to fruition before you go to trial, right? Like, we don't want to try the case to see if you can try the case. And so that's why the Supreme Court is pushing for there to be an evidentiary ruling early before the trial. Otherwise, the kind of immunity doctrine would be obviated if we're just having the trial anyway, and at the back end we have to find out whether something is official or unofficial. So when people are complaining, hey, how come Jack Smith is like releasing all this stuff? He is doing no more and no less than what the Supreme Court is asking him to do. And I disagree with people like Ellie Honig who say otherwise, and we can get into that at some other point in time. But yeah, any comments on that, on the timing or on what's being asked of Jack Smith?
No, I think I understand you.
Yes, and the unofficial actions, those are things that are outside of the outer perimeter of the president's kind of duties as the president of the United States. And so in this particular filing that Jack Smith is...
Okay, I'm planning to do some boss runs then. That'd be great, I think. I have lots of mats, so yeah, no big deal. No big deal. Not exactly sure what I want though. I'll do some Varshan runs and then some Living Steel, Gregoire. I'll start with Varshan. Why is there no language filter here? It's just dumb. Okay, so social, find a party or something. Okay, I'll make my own party then. Wait, I got this thing. Meh. Could have been better. Oh, I got another one of these. This time's horrible though. I'll keep this one. Sure. These are horrible rolls too. Wait, everybody's on T4. Hmm. Yeah, it seems to be the case. Tama na tama.
shall I guide my hammer?
Never seen something finer.
Ian has something to warn me of.
Once myself, yeah.
submitting to the district court in Washington, D.C., he is essentially making the following argument based on certain case law in the D.C. Circuit that when a president is also running for office, when he's wearing the hat of presidential candidate as a candidate for office, he is doing things that are unofficial. But when he's wearing the hat of the relating to his official duties, it's a little bit circular. Then he is acting officially. But every time he's trying to promote his candidacy and like work with the campaign and work with private actors related to the campaign, then that is when he's acting unofficially. Now you can start to see some problems there in that analysis, and just in the sense of, and this is a problem I think of the Supreme Court, is presidents do things to get elected all the time within their official duties, right? The president might take an actual policy position in a matter because they know it's popular or not popular. You could think of the position on fracking, the administration's positions on fracking or tariffs. These are things that I'm sure part of what they're thinking about is, well, is this going to help me in the campaign or not? However, there's a key distinction. I think that some people are missing this. The court, and in this filing, you can see that Jack Smith is very aware of this. The court told us, the Supreme Court that is, we're not supposed to look towards purpose. We're not supposed to look towards subjective intent when we're determining whether something is official or unofficial. That's why we're having all these crazy hypotheticals about SEAL Team 6, because you're not actually supposed to look towards the literal motivations, the subjective motivations of the president at the time they take these actions. You have to look at the objective use of their powers. You have to look at the context and sort of remove it from the sort of purpose of the particular actor acting at the time, the president. I just want to give you some space, Stephen, in case you want to.
So one thing I will say is Roberts was entirely wrong. He's either wrong or the country is destroyed when he said that this ruling needs to be divorced from President Trump's case, and we need to kind of rule in a way that kind of stands the test of time, that's not just individualized to him, because we need to, because the ruling should apply to everybody. This is a ruling for Donald Trump. We cannot, the country does not survive if we're constantly electing presidents that we all want to charge with crimes. It's just, it's unbelievable. The thing that worries me, and this is what worries me, okay, is because I feel, and I think Jack Smith, who's clearly an obvious DGG listener, okay, thank you, Jack. I feel like Trump, there is a kill shot, or I won't use that word, I'm sorry, because I know it triggers some conservatives.
appreciate that. Greetings. and nails. What do you need? I'll keep my forge hot. Return soon.
I found her like this, mumbling about a summoning ritual.
It hurts. The spirit.
The summoning must have gone awry, painfully connecting them. Search for the spirit south of here, just outside the...
Part of the river. I lost my gem. It's so beautiful, but it fell into the river. Maybe it went somewhere down there. Could you help me find it? When I get it back, I'll be able to... well, it would just be good to have it back. I'll bet it's not far. I think I saw something down by the village. But be careful. There are monsters everywhere.
Okay, something's up here for sure. Let's get on to something.
No, only monsters, and they're pointing at me.
Whoa. What?
My village was cursed. Everyone except for me. They were my friends, my neighbors, even my cousin. Everyone. I think the gem is further down the river. If we can find it, I know. The people aren't people anymore. Watch out!
Yeah, I have to kill him. They couldn't even get up.
I remember there's a dry bed over here. Follow me. Is that it? It must be. But what are they all doing around? I'll take the gem. Thank you for getting rid of those monsters.
More spawned.
My parents.
More? You just keep spawning. My s-
My siblings. My parents. I thought they were all dead, but they... I should tell you that the gem wasn't really mine. I took it from an altar in a sacred grove near here. I can explain more back at my village.
And what are you gonna do with the village, bro? Everyone is
I'll
fucking
meet you
dead.
back. I know my way around. I needed to show you my home, Nin Obisu, and tell you this is all my fault. Because I stole the gem from the sacred grove we call Sutsanen.
What is that sound? Tell me about it.
This gem you helped me find, I took it from an altar in Suits. The grove tender. It's a Cheke came looking for me. He knew I took the gem and told me I had to return it to me. The last thing I heard was Cheke chanting, trying to calm the jungle. Then he screamed and it was quiet. I didn't mean for bad things to happen, but I was scared.
Which is why you're not more traumatized.
Once the gem returned, there's the grove. But I can't. I don't want to see what happened to him.
Who is a checker?
I can't go near that tree. I can't see what the jungle did to Etsacheke. Here, take the gem.
Okay, sure. I've seen a lot of this. This your goat, jungle? This your goat? Throw me more enemies. Come on. They die before I can even see them. This be your goat.
Rest and peace now.
It's a check. Is that you?
It's me, you little shit.
Yes, it was my grove to tend. But my vigilance lapsed. I failed. Nipa took the gem. I awoke to the sound of the jungle's fury.
What?
I tried to stem the jungle's rage, but it consumed.
That eagle just got fucked. I killed the eagle.
I was wrapped
I killed my eagle.
vines and foliage in the very earth itself.
They keep fucking dying. What is going on?
I was as you see me now. I tended the grove, and now I am part of it. There must be,
Okay, Nipa. It's your turn now.
I've much to teach you. Your days in the grove are just beginning.
For how long? Forever.
Probably. Good luck though. How does my movement speed get increased like this? That's kind of insane. Oh, these are players! That's awesome. They're nothing though, no. They also... That's cool. I was wondering what happened to the flares, because I only saw them once. Wait, hold on. Okay, I'll do that one. Not yet completed. Wait, players are here. This don't even has players. Trying? What the fuck? Is our one okay? I'm not. Am I progressing or what? Oh, oh wait, that's me. I think I am progressing. I can't tell though. Okay, I won. I almost won. I won. I got so many runes. I got a Jaroon on the phone. We got Ja on the phone. So did that give me region thing? Completion, whatever? Oh, nice, finally, something good.
I've been starting from nothing.
Oh, that's barely an improvement, but okay, I'll take it. Right. Okay. I'll salvage a few sigils. The gold point ones mostly. Finally! Okay, these are what I want. Valerian Sepulchre, Resex Descent. Okay, I'll give this a shot, sure.
I say
Oh, this is like a... okay. Like an optional area. Dude, that zoom out is terrifying. An actual cult. It really is. It's a cult of retarded bugs. I don't get this one. Hold on. Jeez.
Darkness is suffocating.
There's a guillotine lopping the head off of, okay? Trump's main defense here, in my opinion, when it comes to this immunity ruling, because, and there are so many moving parts and so many people that get credit, but people like Richard Donahue, people like Steve Engel, people like Jeffrey Rosen, people like Eric Hirschman, all of these guys were official White House people that when Trump came to them, they said, no, we are not helping you with this. This is insane. Which means that all of Trump's actions that he was taking towards his conspiracy to flip the election was done with private legal counsel that was not involved with the White House. And Jack Smith hits on this a few times, and I'm hoping this has to be like a very big kill shot to Is that an official act or is it an unofficial act? Well, you know, because you and I think reasonable minds can disagree on, well, there are some things that, you know, could be either one. But when Donald Trump is engaged in behavior where he is exclusively relying on private legal counsel that has no affiliation and often is standing in contrast to the White House, and this is the main thing, the worry that I have that will cause my brain to explode, is if you get people on the Supreme Court trying to argue that, well, actually, I think that these were official acts taken by Donald Trump in the capacity as president when he was collaborating with and co-conspiring with and taking advice from individual attorneys that he hired in a private legal sense. I feel like that's a huge issue for Trump, and it's going to be an easy way to overcome the presumptive immunity. I hope, because he relied on so much private legal counsel. I hope.
Yeah, and you'll see, because the special counsel is very aware that you're not supposed to look to subjective intent, they're taking an objective analysis. Objective meaning they're taking the facts of the communications, who received them, and what they were objectively about, as opposed to Trump's subjective intent. And Stephen just clued you in on one of the things that they're constantly referencing: his private attorney, or he was part of the private corporation of the RNC. This is Ronna McDaniel, who's mentioned a lot of times in this filing. By the way, a lot of these names are blacked out, but because of context, we understand who these people are. So yes, those kind of objective measures about who people are, their roles, we would hope that would be some of the context that the Supreme Court is kind of pushing us towards to looking at, and that is something that Jack Smith is relying on heavily. There are government officials here in this filing. But essentially what's being argued is, because of the Hatch Act and other things, that when a government official, such as like a White House counsel, is literally doing things to promote the candidacy of Donald Trump objectively, as opposed to taking any kind of action within their purview, within their job responsibilities, that they are acting as a private, unofficial kind of conduct situation. So yes, those measures, what they're working towards, what their communications are about. Is it about the campaign? You literally have Jack Smith parsing out in certain communications to state officials, because Trump did try to coerce state officials. There are certain communications with those state officials about COVID. And Jack Smith will say in the same conversation, we're not looking towards the conversations about COVID because we recognize there could be some official duty with respect to the President of the United States talking to the states about COVID. However, when the conversation turns to objectively about the campaign and efforts to decertify, the electoral results in Michigan, that is unofficial conduct, so says Jack Smith. Quick response to that, and then we'll get into the potatoes.
Yeah, I think the thing that scares me the most about this being remanded to the lower courts is that there's this thing that Roberts wrote about the presumptive immunity. So these are the official acts that aren't like core exclusive powers of the president, right? And Roberts said that to challenge these, you have to show that in doing so, you will not intrude upon the vigor of the executive in carrying out these functions in the future ever. And that's a scary thing to me, because it reminds me of, I remember when after I did my home inspection, I went to get my house appraised, and I was kind of worried afterwards. I was like, okay, well, I got to get a loan for the house. They're going to come and appraise it. Well, what am I going to do if they appraise it like way less than what I want to get the mortgage for? And the appraiser person and then my real estate agent, they told me, you're willing to pay $155,000 for this house, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's what you've agreed to pay. Yeah. Well, obviously that's what it's worth, right? You're literally going to go pay for this. Everybody else in the neighborhood is about the same. So of course they're going to appraise it at about that value. This is literally what you're willing to pay for it. Assuming there's something hugely wrong with it. I'm like, oh, I guess that kind of makes sense. Like in a literal actual sense. One thing that scares me about that presumptive immunity thing is this has never been, ever, to be clear, and I want to reiterate this a billion times, okay? But because, by the way, this was the same complaint about, and I think it was somewhat of a valid complaint about Roe and I think Casey, when they laid out all of these new categories of like abortion, guidelines, whatever. They're like, this looks like legislation. Why are you creating this stuff? Like you said, out of whole cloth. This presumptive immunity, the core immunity, absolute immunity, the unofficial acts, none of this exists anywhere in the history or the text of anything. There's nothing historical. There's nothing. This is the most living, breathing, constitutional, fabrication of legislation from the bench you've ever seen in your entire life. Okay. But my biggest fear is, since we've never tried a case like this before, and since there's no record of a president even making statements like this, if we're being good faith and pretending that this is all written in good faith, wouldn't it mean a lot if the only president to have been tried for a crime like this were to say as part of his defense, listen, if you're going to try me for this as a crime, I might never call a state ever to check in on a crime, to check in on an election, to check, even if I think there's fraud, I'll never do it. Well, if the only guy who's ever been tried for this crime is saying that, how do you overcome the presumptive immunity to say that, like, well, look, I don't think it would intrude at all. Okay, well, the guy that was literally in office, he says that it would intrude. So yeah, that balancing test, that's the big part where I'm like, fuck me, I don't know how the Supreme Court is going to try to balance that.
I totally understand your concerns. I share them, and I agree that what the court was doing was mapping on these weird doctrines from like Nixon and other cases and contexts in which they've never appeared before, and it's not supported by any of the history or the structure of the Constitution. 100%. To be clear, Jack Smith is arguing every single action that is alleged in the new indictment. There was a superseded indictment after the immunity decision to excise all of the core conduct identified as core executive, and that conduct related to the Department of Justice, Trump's usage of the Department of Justice.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane that it is a core power of the president to tell your DOJ head, to tell your attorney general, you need to lie. You need to be clear that the evidence we can't use anymore is Donald Trump going to the Department of Justice saying, hey, can you lie to the states and say that we found voter fraud? And then it was William Barr saying, sorry, I'm not going to do that. Okay, bye, Barr. Rosen and Donahue come in. Hey, can you guys send out a letter lying to the state saying we found evidence of voter fraud? And then them going, well, no, I don't think so. And then Trump going, oh, okay, well, this environmental lawyer, Clark, I'm going to make him the head and I'm going to make him do it, okay? Because he'll send out that letter and fucking lie for me, okay? And then they said, okay, well, you know, your whole DOJ is going to quit on you. Good luck. And Trump's like, okay, whatever. That's an official core power of the president. And hold on, this is so important to understand, okay? Because when people say, well, the SEAL Team 6 thing doesn't make sense, and I've heard you argue, we've argued this together, I've heard a conservative respond and say, it's not a core power to assassinate political opponents. It's like, what do you mean? It is a core power to run the military and potentially to do assassinations, right? Yeah, but not to assassinate political opponents, right? And you see what they're doing there is they're intuitively fighting the Supreme Court decision, saying, well, maybe we do need to look at the intention of an act. Maybe it does require some sort of review or analysis to figure out if it's good or bad. But the immunity ruling says no, and this also pisses me off, okay? And this is why for Justice Barrett, I'm glad that she wrote this in her concurrence. I wish she would have dissented. I know she's got it in her. She's going to be the biggest warrior in the Supreme Court. I can feel it coming up, okay? And she pointed out, why did Roberts, of the 4 big actions that were talked about in the indictment, why did Roberts take the time, waste the ink and parchment to write, by the way, that DOJ stuff, that's probably core, so we're not even going to look at that. He didn't even remand that to the lower courts for review, which is absurd. Because who's to say that Jack Smith wouldn't have presented it in a different way had he known that we were going to be fabricating new buckets of presidential immunity? Sorry, but yeah. Anyway, that would be the thing that's beyond judicial review now, and Jack Smith can't even approach it, yeah.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that the Chief Justice of the United States, while he is willing to address a hypothetical by Amy Coney Barrett, that is to say the bribery allegations, which is apropos because there seems to be tons of bribery allegations these days of both Democrats and Republicans. So Chief Justice Roberts does take the time to address that hypothetical. For some reason, he's silent about the parade of horribles because he has to accept that is the case, that there are some objective things the president is allowed to use, deadly force, for the purpose of national security or whatever you want to say, that a wily president could trivially come up with some pretextual memorandum stating that a political rival is a threat to the United States, and you can't look at the purpose, you can't look to the sham. And so, yeah, all of that is gone from the superseded indictment of Jack Smith, but Jack Smith says everything else is unofficial except the court also held that conversations with Mike Pence about the certification of the vote is official, but they said that it's presumptive immunity, that it's subject to presumptive immunity, which the special counsel is going to have to give evidence or come to some argument about why it would not pose any threat to the prerogatives of the executive if they were to allow charging based on the communications to Mike Pence about the certification of the vote. So everything else, though, Jack Smith is saying is unofficial, largely because they relate to the campaign. And they're relying heavily on this precedent from the D.C. Circuit where a candidate for office, and this kind of makes sense, right? If it's true that a candidate for office can take official actions, then I guess Trump right now could be taking official action since right now he's a candidate for office. Or you could say that Joe Biden at the time, he was only doing so much as Trump could do with respect to being a candidate for office. And so that argument makes intuitive sense, and it's backed up by precedent. And so he's making a big effort to tie everything to these are related to campaigning for office in an objective measure, not subjective intent. The one area, and this also includes, by the way, conversations with Mike Pence about winning not about the certification of the vote, but conversations with Mike Pence about the campaign and about who won or who lost. Jack Smith is saying, as between the comments to Michael Pence, you can separate even between those about the certification, which are presumptively immune, and we can rebut it, or the conversations about who won the election, did we win, did we lose, what can we do? So those are kind of the buckets that the special counsel is putting them into, and he's arguing that almost everything is unofficial. Now, what is the big so what of this document? Number one, it's 160 plus pages of great analysis, but the first section, section 1, everyone should take a look at. This is the factual story that Jack Smith is able to present, and it is chilling. There are some new things in this filing, new facts that we weren't aware of. There are facts related to Trump acknowledging that he's going to say he won, attested to by multiple people. We already knew this based on what Steve Bannon said
And
in
Roger Stone
interview.
Yeah.
But now we have like 4 or 5 people saying he said the same thing to me. He said the same thing to me, that we're going to declare victory, even if, regardless of who wins. We have other comments that he made about Mike Pence during January 6th, where he says like, I don't give a shit if he lives or dies. And so there's a lot of rich detail in it.
You had the comment of multiple people, I believe, attested to him being in the room where Sidney Powell was calling in, and then him muting the phone and saying like, sounds like she's from Star Trek. She's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And why does this matter, right? Because people will say till their dying death, that is MAGA people, Trump legitimately thought that he won the election. If you read this filing and come away with the conclusion that it is at all possible in any reasonable world that Trump thought that he won the election, you're not reading it correctly. There are multiple areas, multiple places in this filing, in this motion, where it is abundantly obvious that Donald Trump believes that he lost the election. When he says, as Stephen just referenced, all the things that Sidney Powell are saying on the phone to him in real time, mutes himself and says, she's crazy, she sounds like Star Trek. That is an admission. It's an admission that what she's saying is false. When she says when he says Tucker Carlson owned Sidney Powell on Fox News, that is an admission that what Sidney Powell is saying is false. And yet he's hawking it. He's hawking it to state legislators. He's hawking it to fake electors who are part of this conspiracy. And he's hawking it to Mike Pence and to Brad Raffensperger on a phone call, find me 11,000 votes. All of this is part of a large effort that spans from before even the election happened, where their design plan was to declare victory no matter what. And when they knew they lost, they did it anyway. And it should shock and make every American, impossible for them to vote for Donald Trump for this very reason. Yeah.
You also have to be aware, like, this is not, like, when we talk about Hunter Biden, we're reading uncorroborated, what's the abbreviation for the FBI, CIA?
The FD 1023.
Yeah, you're reading these uncorroborated intel reports. You're looking at like public filings of transfers and emails of who's the big man, right? These are your stories that Republicans have hung their hat on in terms of there being irrefutable proof that there's corruption. When it comes to this plot for overturning the election, there are
Republicans,
hundreds of hours of depositions, of on-camera testimony, the whole J6 committee. That's an 830-page report that is meticulously sourced. It is whatever you read in the Jack Smith indictment, just know that the hardest thing about putting together the case against Trump is how much do you cut? Because there is so much more beyond what's even presented. It is beyond a reasonable doubt. There are no reasonable minds that could disagree on whether or not there was an intentional plan the entire time that Donald Trump used. I have not sat through the kind of related. I went through with an editor yesterday. I finally found somebody, or 2 days ago, to put together my big J6 video that I'm working on right over. And I went through, and it took me about 6 hours to get through. And
Starting tonight, I'm a man of my word.
This is one of the violent incidents tied to Vladimir Putin in 2024. It's not on the battlefield. It's a shopping center in Poland's capital city. The Russian president